الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. आजकल जमात में
Nowadays, within the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, there are jalsas or conventions being held with reference to the promised reformer. In other words, this was that prophecy in which Allah the Almighty revealed to the promised Messiah alayhi salam about a promised son, regarding whom Allah the Almighty stated that this son would possess very special characteristics. He would be a servant of the faith. He would have a long life. And he would further the mission of the promised Messiah, peace be upon him. This prophecy was done on the 20th of February, 1886. This prophecy showed the help and support of Allah the Almighty for the promised Messiah alayhi salam, and is indeed a great sign in this respect. Regarding this prophecy, on the 12th of January 1889, that son was born, and his name was Mirza Bashiruddin Mahmud Ahmad. After the demise of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih I, Allah the Almighty granted him the mantle of Khilafat or Caliphate. At this time, I will present some incidents in the life of the Hazrat Muslih Maud which reflect about how he was a personification of this prophecy. However, before I do this, I will, in the words of the promised Messiah, peace be upon him, speak about the importance of this prophecy and its truthfulness. This prophecy was not the prophecy of the birth of a son, rather it was the prophecy of such a splendid progeny through whom a spiritual revolution would be laid. In this regard, the promised Messiah alayhi salatu wasalam, on whom be peace, the response he gave to his opponents, as I have mentioned, I will present that in the words from his various statements. The promised Messiah, peace be upon him, states, "Here you should open your eyes and observe." The promised Messiah alayhi salam says that here you should open your eyes and witness that this is not just a mere prophecy, rather this is a splendid sign from the heavens. Allah the Almighty has shown this for our great chief of all prophets, the noble Prophet Muhammad, may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, and to manifest his truthfulness. In truth, this sign is much greater and far more superior than bringing someone back from life, from death. Because the reality of it is that in the signs of heavens, someone prays, and a spiritual death is returned into life. It is said in the Bible regarding the Messiah and other prophets that they can perform this miracle. Many opponents have opposed and raised allegations against this. It is also logical in this place that such a dead person only would come back to life for a few minutes, but after that he would return to his fate. to the grieving of those he left behind. Neither did this ever benefit the people of the world by them coming back for just a few minutes, neither did that person themselves get any relief. Neither did the bereaved relatives get any true happiness out of this sign. So if through the prayers of the Messiah, the first Messiah, any spirit actually came back into the world, then his coming or not coming was equal, because it had no benefit. And for argument's sake, even if such a spirit was returned to the world for a long period of time, what benefit could it give to the world? However, the promised Messiah ﷺ says, with reference to this prophecy, that previously, the previous prophets, it was said that they would bring back the dead people to life, and they would do it to ordinary people. But the promised Messiah ﷺ says here, through the grace and mercy of Allah the Almighty, and by virtue of the blessings of the seal of prophets, the Khatamun Nabiyyin, the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, Allah accepted the prayers of this humble one and promised to send such a blessed individual whose secular and spiritual blessings would spread all over the world. So this sign is equal to bringing back the death to life. But upon further reflection, we will observe that actually this sign is thousands of times superior than bringing someone back from life. Because here, through prayer, a spiritual foundation is laid. The promised Messiah ﷺ says, when prayer was made for a son to be born, it was through prayers that the Spirit was invoked for. But there is thousands and hundreds of thousands of difference in value between this and that. There are many people who see the miracles of the Holy Prophet and are not content. They have hidden apostasy within them amongst the Muslims, and in fact, they have regret. So therefore, as the promised Messiah ﷺ, on whom be peace, says, no ordinary individual was invoked for in this sign. In fact, a great sign was supplicated for, in response to which Allah the Almighty revealed that a son would be born who would possess numerous qualities and characteristics. Such a great individual and progeny was prophesied, who would have a very long life, who would be extremely intelligent and understanding, who would have grandeur, glory and wealth. People would gain blessings from them. He would be filled with secular and spiritual knowledge. He would understand the word of Allah, the Quran, into in-depth knowledge, and he would take that knowledge from Allah the Almighty, and he would be able to serve the Holy Quran in such a glorious way that the word of Allah, the Quran, would become manifest upon the entire world. He would be a means to free people from bondage. And there would be such destruction or catastrophes in the world that would cause the world to tremble, and he would have fame to the ends of the earth. We now observe that Hazrat Muslim Maud, during his lifetime, such incredible catastrophes and calamities came about. For example, 2 world wars took place. And also in the case of natural disasters. Then in terms of his fame reaching the ends of the earth, during his life he established new missions. He also carried out new work for the propagation of Islam for Tabligh, and he spread the message of Islam all across the world. And this is how his fame reached the ends of the earth. In fact, with reference to this prophecy, we observe that this is continuing until today. At this time, I will express some things with reference to the biography of Hazrat Muslim Maud, the promised reformer. In terms of his education, after learning the Holy Quran and reciting it, he was enrolled in a school. And he had the opportunity to gain the early secular education. He would also learn from Urdu and English tutors at home. In this regard, Pir Manzoor Ahmad Sahib, may Allah be pleased with him, would teach him Urdu for a short while of time. The teachers or tutors who were appointed to educate him in the home, they included Pir Manzoor Muhammad Sahib. For a short while of time he taught him Urdu. Then Maulvi Sher Ali Sahib, may Allah be pleased with him, also taught him English at home. However, all of this education, in what atmosphere was it actually done? In this regard, when Hazrat Khalifa Masih IV wrote a biography of the second Khalifa, he said this is also an interesting anecdote, that Hazrat Mirza Bashiruddin Mahmud Ahmad, in his own words, we can come to understand from. As I mentioned, what were the circumstances at the time? We come to learn from this, from the words of the second Khalifa himself, Hazrat Muslih Maud. He says that with reference to my education, the person who has the greatest effect and kindness upon me with reference to my education is the first Khalifa, because he was a physician and he was familiar with the fact that my health did not permit me to read books for a lengthy period of time. Therefore, his method of teaching was that he would seat me beside him and he would say, Mia, or Sir, I will keep on reciting and you should keep on reading. So in the very early age of my life, I had some illness with my eyes very severely. And for many years, my eyes were extremely sore. And such a deep pain was in my eyes that doctors would say that I would become blind. Upon this, the promised Messiah, peace be upon him, for my health would pray profusely, and especially he also kept fasts for the sake of this. Hazrat Muslih Maud says, I do not remember how many fasts he observed. However, perhaps 3 or 7 fasts he kept. When he was about to break the final fast, and he was about to put some food into his mouth, suddenly I opened my eyes, and I said aloud that I have started to see. But the severity of this illness and attacks upon my eyes, that one of my eyes became blind. So I could not see on one side of my eye. I can see the path in front of me, but I cannot read a book. If there is somebody sitting in front of me a few feet ahead of me, and I recognize that person, then I can identify him. But if there is a stranger in front of me a few yards or feet, I would not be able to recognize them. Only one of my eyes were operational, but even that started to be inflicted with this severe illness, to the extent that many eyes I would wake up in deep pain. The promised Messiah, alayhi salatu wasalam, on peace be upon him, said to my teachers and tutors that let him study upon his wish, that let him study as long as he can. If he does not study, do not overburden him, because his health does not permit him to be overburdened with studies. The promised Messiah, peace be upon him, would repeatedly say to me, says Hazrat Muslih Maud, that learn about the translation of the Holy Quran and from Bukhari from Maulvi Sahib. In other words, Hazrat Maulana Nuruddin, the first Khalifa, Hazrat Khalifatul Masih the first. Learn from him. Apart from this, the promised Messiah alayhi salam also said, also learn some aspects of medicine, because this is a quality of our family to be familiar with this. Master Fakirullah Sahib was one of our teachers in our school. To teach the children, he would solve problems on the board, but as a result of my weak eyesight, I could not see what was being written on the board, for the board was quite far away from me, and my sight could not function to the extent of the distance of the board. And I could not see it anyhow, even if I could see it, because my eye would tire. So I considered it useless to sit in the class. When I desired, I left the class, and when I desired, I did not even attend at all. Once Master Fakir Sahib went to the promised Messiah and complained about me, that, Your Holiness, he does not study at all. Sometimes he comes to the school, and sometimes he is absent. Hazrat Muslih Maud says that I remember that when Master Sahib came to the promised Messiah with this complaint against me, out of fear I hid somewhere, that perhaps the promised Messiah, peace be upon him, would become very angry with me. But the promised Messiah, peace be upon him, when he heard this, he said to the Master Sahib, the professor or teacher, that you are very kind that you take care of my son. And I'm very happy to hear what you say, that sometimes he goes to the school, that he at least goes to some extent. Otherwise, I think that his health does not permit him to study at all. Then the promised Messiah, peace be upon him, laughed. We are not going to open up a shop of selling like a bakery. He does not need to know mathematics for this purpose. Whether he knows it or not, it is irrelevant. He says the Holy Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, or companions, what did they learn of arithmetic, etc.? If he goes to school, it is all well and good. Otherwise, do not compel him for this purpose. Hearing this, Master Sahib returned. Hazrat Muslim Maud said, I took full advantage of this kindness of the promised Messiah, and I started becoming completely absent from school. Sometimes I would come once a month, and sometimes not even that. So he said, this is the manner in which I was educated. And I was also compelled, because in addition to my weak eyesight, I also had problems with other parts of my body. I would drink a special type of water for this problem. Iodide of mercury was something I was given. Then I also was given something else. And I also had an illness of my liver. And perhaps I had something of my tonsils. And I also had the problem with my eyesight. All of these things were present. Then I had fever, sometimes which would not abate for 6 months on end. And then I was told, do not study as much as you can. So every single person can understand the state of my education in those early years. He says, once our maternal grandfather, Mir Nasir Nawab Sahib, may Allah be pleased with him, he took an examination of Urdu from me. Hazrat Muslim Maud writes, even now, I have really poor handwriting. But in those days, my handwriting was so bad that people could not even read what I had written. So with great difficulty tried to read what I wrote, but he could not. He says, often the writing of my children are much better than mine. Abdul Rashid, for example, is much better than mine. It is so good that I gave her 1 rupee in reward. Abdul Rashid would read herself. In fact, what was said that if anyone could read my writing, we would give 1 rupee reward. That was the condition of my poor handwriting. That it was so bad that it could not be read. When Mir Sahib saw the exam that I took, he became passionate and said that this is of no use at all. He was a very tempered person who would get angry very quickly. He reached the promised Messiah. By coincidence, I was at home. We were already very afraid of him because we knew he had a very short temper. When he reached the promised Messiah alayhi salam, and he complained to him, I was even more afraid what would happen to me. So Mir Sahib then came and he said to the promised Messiah, peace be upon him, that you have no attention towards the education of Mahmud. I took an examination of Urdu from him. Look at his exam. His handwriting is so poor that no one can read it. In the same state of rage, Mir Sahib said to the promised Messiah, you do not care about his education at all. His age is being wasted away. When the promised Messiah saw Mir Sahib in this state of rage, he said to him, call Hazrat Maulvi Sahib. So when the promised Messiah ever had any difficulty in anything, he would always call Hazrat Khalifatul Masih the First. Hazrat Muslim Maud said, Hazrat Khalifatul Masih the First loved me greatly. So he came, and as usual, he put his head down and stood to one side. The promised Messiah said, Maulvi Sahib to Khalifatul Masih I, I have brought you here for the purpose that Mir Sahib here says that the handwriting of Mahmud is so poor it cannot be read. I want his exam to be taken. The promised Messiah said, I want his test to be taken. Saying this, the promised Messiah, peace be upon him, picked up a pen and wrote a few sentences and gave them to me and said, copy this. Hazrat Muslim Maud said, this was my test, which the promised Messiah, peace be upon him, took from me. Very carefully, with great deliberation and due diligence, I tried to copy it. It was not very long. All I had to do was replicate it. And to replicate something is, of course, not that hard, because you have the original before you. So slowly and carefully, I copied it. I copied the A and the B of the Urdu language. And when the promised Messiah glanced at it, he said that I was so worried by what Mir Sahib was saying, but his handwriting is very similar to mine. Hazrat Khalifatul Masih first was already standing there waiting to support me. He says that Khalifatul Masih first and Mir Sahib is just getting furious for no reason, otherwise Mahmud has very good handwriting. The first Khalifa would always say, Mia, sir, your health is not such that you can study on your own. Come to me, I will read out and you listen. So with great emphasis, first he taught me the Holy Quran, then he taught me Bukhari, the book of Hadith, and he taught me the Holy Quran very slowly and gradually. He would read the Holy Quran and he would also translate it side by side. Anything he deemed worthy of stopping and explaining, he would do so. Otherwise, he would quickly go through. In 3 months, he taught me the entire Holy Quran. After this, after the demise of the promised Messiah, peace be upon him, Hazrat Khalifatul Masih I then said again, at least complete the learning of the Bukhari from me. Hazrat Muslim Maud said that I said to him that the promised Messiah would say to me that learn Bukhari and the Quran from Maulvi Sahib. So in the lifetime of the promised Messiah, I started to learn the Quran and Bukhari from Hazrat Khalifatul Masih I. I also started to learn about medicine on the instruction of the promised Messiah. Me and Mir Ishaq Sahib started this syllabus of medicine on the same day. Then he says there is an anecdote, amusing one, of Mir Sahib which was very well known. On the first day, they both took this lesson, and on the second day, Mir Muhammad Ishaq Sahib said to his mother, Amma Jan, mother, wake me up early, because Maulvi Sahib comes later. I will go there first, that is to the place where the physicians operate, so I can diagnose them. He had only learned it for a day, yet he was saying this. In short, I learned medicine from him and also commentary of the Holy Quran from the first Khalifa. He completed the commentary of the Holy Quran upon me in 2 months. He would seat me beside me. Sometimes he would do 1 and sometimes 12. Sometimes he would give a commentary of the verse. And he also taught me Bukhari in 1 or 2 months. Once during the month of Ramadan, he taught me the entire Holy Quran, or he gave a dars of the entire Holy Quran, a religious lecture, and I was able to attend that lecture. I also learned Arabic from him. This was my education, but during these days, when this course was completed, Allah the Almighty showed me a dream, which was regarding his progress and development. So therefore, we see in his addresses, and Hazrat says this was the circumstances of how he gained education. But in terms of his speeches, in terms of his addresses, in terms of his writing, in terms of his commentary of the Holy Quran, all of them testify to the fact that Allah the Almighty is the one who taught him. This is most definitely a proof and of evidence of the truthfulness of this prophecy. In the lifetime of the promised Messiah, peace be upon him, in the Jalsa Salana of 1906, in that Hazrat Muslim Maud gave his first public lecture. In its deep insight and perception, it had a deep impact upon the attendees. In terms of the impact that it had upon the participants, this can be seen in one of the companions of the promised Messiah and great poet, Hazrat Qazi Muhammad Zuhur Din Sahib, and his words, when he said the following. This is a reflection of the stars of prophethood. Mahmud stood up to give a speech on polytheism. He stood up to give a speech on polytheism. I listened to his speech very attentively. What can I tell you? It was an ocean of knowledge which was dripping with great intensity. In such a short age, such a small age, he had such maturity of thought and intelligence. I also feel this is a sign of the truthfulness of the promised Messiah. And this can be manifested by the fact that the effect of the Messiah's training upon him was reflected in his spiritual loftiness and elevation. In those days, educational learning and pursuit and wisdom told us that when it said that he will grow very rapidly, all of this part of the prophecy we could see in Hazrat Muslih Maud as he displayed his intelligence. This was also seen by the promised Messiah. On one occasion he said, in Mian Mahmud there is so much religious intensity that I specially pray for him at times. These are the words of the promised Messiah. Most certainly he prayed because Allah the Almighty would make him that very son who Allah the Almighty had revealed to the promised Messiah would be granted to him, and this rainfall of blessings would go even faster, and even more truth would manifest in his support. Hazrat Mirza Tahir Ahmad has written a biography of the second Khalifa in which he writes, Hazrat Khalifa Masih IV writes about the second Khalifa after his demise. In the early period of the first Khalifa, Hazrat second Khalifa was 19 years old, and at the demise of the second Khalifa, the demise of the first Khalifa, the second Khalifa was 26 years old. In this young age, the style of his speeches and his manner of discourse and his manner of addressing, he says, I shall present some examples of this. There was great maturity in his intellectual thought and thought process, and it reverberated with intellectual strength. It was unparalleled. It was free of any formalities or artificiality. It was an incredible flow, and it was like a flow of ocean in terms of knowledge. It was immersed with a river of perception and insight and spiritual acumen. After the demise of the promised Messiah at the age of 19, the first speech that the second Khalifa gave, with regards to this, a great elder, Hazrat Maulvi Sher Ali Sahib, who was filled with knowledge, said the following, that another incident which I would like to mention in this article is regarding the first speech of the second Khalifa. That is, he was alive during the lifetime of Hazrat Maulvi Sher Ali Sahib. The second Khalifa's first speech he gave after the demise of the promised Messiah, peace be upon him, in the first Jalsa Salana. It was in the courtyard of Jalsa of the Madrasa. The stage was pointing in one direction and he was sitting there. There are two things worthy of mention with regards to this speech. Hazrat Maulvi Sher Ali. First, the astonishing thing was that his voice and his way of talking and his mannerism of speaking was so similar to the way of the promised Messiah that in the hearts of those listening, that is, the period of time from the demise of the promised Messiah was actually removed, and we felt refreshed by the time of the promised Messiah. And many people who as a result of this voice, which was so similar of the promised Messiah, which was coming from the son of the promised Messiah, which was reverberating them like from a gramophone reverberates the sound, and it caused people to cry and to weep. And amongst those who were crying and weeping was myself. If it is true to say that a person's spirit can be transferred to another, we can say that at the time the spirit of the promised Messiah seemed to be descending upon him, and it was announcing that this is my beloved son, who as a sign of mercy has been given, and with regards to whom it has been said that he would be similar to you in many ways. The second point that is worthy of mention with regards to this speech is that when the speech came to its conclusion, then Hazrat Khalifatul Masih I, may Allah be pleased with him, who spent his entire life teaching the Holy Quran to the second Khalifa and who understood it as well, said, Mia, that is, the second Khalifa has given a commentary of the Holy Quran in so many new ways that are completely new to even me. Maulvi Sher Ali Sahib said that this was the first speech that the second Khalifa gave, and in this first speech he had such deep knowledge and perception of the Holy Quran, which he presented after the demise of the promised Messiah, that it led the first Khalifa, who was such a great scholar of the Holy Quran, to acknowledge and admit that many of the things that he said were new for even him. So who taught these new avenues and branches of knowledge to this youngster? This knowledge and this wisdom and this intellect was given by whom to this youth? It was given by he who, it is said regarding Hazrat Joseph, وَلَمَّا بَلَغَا شُدَّهُمْ آتَيْنَاهُمْ حُكْمًا وَعِلْمًا وَكَذَلِكَ نَزَلَ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. وَلَمَّا بَلَغَ شُدَّهُ آتَيْنَاهُ حُكْمًا وَعِلْمًا وَكَذَلِكَ نَزَلَ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. And when he reached his age of maturity, we granted him wisdom and intellect, and we are giving reward to those who are favored. This was mentioned in the Holy Quran by Allah with regards to Hazrat Joseph. So he did not just, Hazrat Muslim did not just mention ordinary aspects of knowledge. In fact, he uncovered hidden gems of treasures of knowledge. And Allah the Almighty says about the Holy Quran, لا يمسه إلا المطهرين مطهرون لا يمسه إلا المطهرون. Only he will touch the Holy Quran who is righteous and pure. And only he will understand it. So for him to present these great new in-depth knowledge of the Holy Quran shows us that he spent his early years in the special training of Allah himself, and he was counted amongst the mutahhirin, the pure people. With regards to his life, there are some expressions of non-Ahmadi journalists. On March 1903, before writing this, in the introduction to this journalist, it said in March 1913, Muhammad Aslam came from Amritsar to Qadian. He stayed for a few days, then he returned. He was able to study the Jamaat from very close hand, and he wrote a detailed exposition with regards to this. And he wrote regarding Hazrat Musleh Maud that Sahibzada Mirza Bashiruddin Mahmud Ahmad Sahib, I was greatly impressed by him. He is someone who likes great simplicity. He is a very courteous and polite person. He is extremely knowledgeable. And also, he is someone who is very pious. Apart from other discussions and regards the future of the subcontinent, the other opinions and the other thoughts that he mentioned regarding the public at large and also other matters and specific issues was something that was based on deeply wisdom. This is before he became the Khalifa in 1913, when the first Khalifa was the Khalifa. Then this journalist writes that he also expressed his pious desire that I should spend at least 1 week in Qadian. Unfortunately, I was not able to fulfill this, but this great favor and kindness that he extended to me, I was very grateful for. His piety, his righteousness, his deeply wide thought process is always something I will remember. His level of worship was so lofty even in his childhood. What was the state of it? Mufti Muhammad Sadiq Sahib, who was amongst his tutors at an early age, expressed some of his sentiments in this respect. And he says the following: because this humble one took the Pledge of Allegiance of the promised Messiah alayhi salam at the end of 1890. And from that time, I have always remained firm in this community. I have seen Hazrat Mirza Bashiruddin Mahmud Ahmad Sahib from the early childhood. I have seen he has always shown the way of modesty, sincerity, and of turning towards the religion and spirituality. In the religious works of the promised Messiah, he was always so enthusiastic from an early age. As well, from prayers, he would go to the Jamia Mosque. He would listen to the sermons. He said, once I remember that once the second Khalifa was just 10 years old, he came to Masjid Aqsa with the promised Messiah and stood beside him in prayers. He was crying so greatly in his prostration in sajda. He was so concerned for the faith in the early age. He had a special relationship of love with Allah and His messengers. Then there is another account regarding how he would pray with great humility and weeping and crying and in great concentration. Even elders would be astonished witnessing this scene of his. And even when those elders knew that there was no tragedy or difficult circumstances he was facing, when the elders would see the way he would prostrate and cry in humility, they would be completely amazed. And they would ask this question, that what is it that makes this child wake up secretly at night and fall down weeping and crying before his Lord? And through his innocent tears, he is able to fill the prayer mat, with his crying. Hazrat Mirza Tahir Ahmad Sahib, when he wrote this biography of the second Khalifa, may Allah be pleased with him, he writes, Sheikh Ghulam Ahmad Sahib, may Allah be pleased with him, also had this astonishment in his heart, who was a new Muslim and a convert, and he had pledged allegiance upon the promised Messiah and entered into Islam. In his sincerity and his devotion, he developed to such a degree that he became a great servant of Allah, and he was counted amongst the lofty saints. Sheikh Sahib would say, that is Sheikh Ghulam Ali Sahib would say, once I intended that at night I would spend in Masjid Mubarak, and in isolation and in seclusion I would ask from Allah whatever I so please. But when I reach to the mosque, what do I see? I see that there is an individual in prostration in sajda. He is praying with great intensity. As a result of this great zeal and humility, I could not even pray. And the impact of his prayers was affecting me. And I also became engrossed in these prayers, and I also pray that, oh Allah, whatever this person is praying to you, please give it to him. And I stood and I was tired. Then when this person lifted his head from prostration, I came to know who he was. He says, I cannot say how long he was there before I had come, but when he lifted his head from prostration, what do I see? It's Hazrat Mian Mahmud Ahmad Sahib. I said, Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you, and shaked his hand. And I inquired from him that, Mia, what have you asked for from God today? He said, I have supplicated and beseeched that, O Allah, through my eyes show Islam to revive into life. And saying this, he went away. So he was praying with such deep, immense intensity in his heart, that longing in his heart was to see Islam come back to life. And that seed that was found in those prayers was actually something that bore fruit after he became the Khalifa. Hazrat Sahibzada Mirza Mahmud Ahmad Sahib, the second Khalifa, in Tashheezul Lisan, the magazine, he mentions one of his prayers. which in 1909 he wrote. He mentions after the blessings of Ramadan, he cites the following, that for the magazine Tashheezul Azhan, I was looking for an article on my table when I came across a paper which was one of my prayers and entreaties which I had done in the previous Ramadan. After seeing this prayer, I had a great enthusiasm that I should also draw the attention of others. Who knows whose prayers will be accepted, and when the blessings of Allah the Almighty will descend in a special glory upon our community. To express the depths of my heart, I shall replicate that prayer here, that perhaps in the hearts of one sincere person, you will also get enthusiasm, and you will also pray for the Ahmadis and for the Jamaat in a similar way, which is my real purport. And this is the prayer. O my Master, my powerful Lord, my beloved God, my guide, O Creator of the heavens and earth, O the one who is omnipotent, O that Lord from the time of Adam to the time of Jesus brought thousands and hundreds of thousands of guides to the world to guide mankind. O He who is all-knowing and all-seeing, who brought an individual like the Master Prophet Muhammad, may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him. O the Merciful, who brought such a guide amongst the servants of the Holy Prophet. O He who creates light. O He who rids people of darkness. Yes, I beseech you, and only you, yes, only you, me who is nothing, in humiliation and humility, please accept my entreaty, and accept it because it is your promises that gave me the courage to ask for anything from you. I was nothing, but you made me of value. I was not even a particle, yet you brought me into existence. For my development you provided the needs, and you created humans. I could not express my needs, yet you appointed such people to fulfill my needs who would be concerned of their own volition. Then you gave me development, and you increased my provision and resources. O my beloved, yes, O my beloved, you instructed Adam and Eve to be my mother and father, and from amongst your servants you made a servant who was seen with great respect. You appointed him upon me because he would recommend in your court and would bring mercy from you. I was a sinner, but you overlooked my faults. I had shortcomings, but you forgave me. In every difficulty you supported me. Whenever I had any tribulation, you came to my aid. Whenever I was about to be misguided, then you grabbed my hand. Despite the fact of any of my faults, you showed me love and kindness. Despite me going far, you came close to me. I was not known to your... I was ignorant of your name, but you remembered me. My relatives and my known and those known to me and my friends, when this happened, you showed your sign of mercy. When they were bereft of me, I was sad, yet you made me happy. I had grief, but you made me overcome that. I cried, but you made me laugh. You showed me your countenance yourself. You gave me the promises, and you fulfilled those promises, and never has it happened that you ever showed any shortcoming in fulfilling those promises. I promised you, but I broke some of those promises, but you did not have any regard for this. I do not see that there is anyone who is a greater sinner than me. I do not know anyone who has been so kind as you have been upon a sinner as me. You are so compassionate that one can never even imagine. He says to, O Allah, no one can even envisage someone so compassionate. When I fall down in prostration, in tears, in humiliation, in your throne and in your court, you heard my beseechments and entreaties. I never know when you have declined my prayers and accepting them. So, O Allah, with my deeply and heart-wrenching prayers, I bow down before you, and I beseech you, and I supplicate to accept my prayers. O my holy God, my people are getting destroyed and ruined. Save them. If they are called Ahmadis, then what link do I have until they are pure and clean of heart and they have your share of love? What other link do I have unless they have this? So, O my Lord, from your attribute of Rahimiyat and Rahmaniyat, grace and mercy, stir it into action. Purify them. Enable the spirits of the companions to come into them. May they have a great passion for the faith in them. May their actions be even purer than them. May they sacrifice everything for you. May they devote themselves to the Holy Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him. May the prayers of the promised Messiah be accepted on their behalf. O my Lord, remove my people from all tribulations and difficulties. Save them from all tribulations. Enable many saints to be created amongst them. May these be the people that you prefer. May this be a community who you specially choose. May they be free from the temptations and ploys of Satan, and may the angels always descend upon them. May these people get the grace. Ameen, summa ameen. May this prayer be accepted. Hazrat says, this prayer, as I mentioned, is of 1909. It was during the era of the first Khalifa, when the second Khalifa was only 20 years old. Even then, he had this pain and longing for the faith and the religion, and for all people. May Allah the Almighty may grant thousands of blessings upon his soul, who for the sake of spreading the religion of the Holy Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, and for furthering the mission of the Messiah and Mahdi of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he would make day and night as if one. He would fulfill that pledge, and he would beseech Allah the Almighty. May we come to understand this heart-wrenching prayer. May we come to fulfill the purpose of being an Ahmadi. May Allah the Almighty enable us to do so.
الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله عباد الله رحمكم الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون اذكروا الله يذكركم وادعوه يستجب لكم ولذكر الله أكبر.
اللهم صل على آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد